One thing I do have to say is you were also vice president of the Screen Actors Guild at one time.
Yeah.
But you had a very different perspective than most actors or most anybody of Jack L. Warner.
Yeah.
You really thought Jack was a good guy, and why was that?
I'm on the board of directors of the Screen Actors Guild for about 8 years. And suddenly, Ronald Reagan becomes the president of the Screen Actors Guild, and I become the vice president of the guild. Now, don't be alarmed, because you know the board of directors of the Screen Actors Guild are the only ones that can make laws and things. They're the only ones that can get them through for actors. And do you know what our salary was for being on the board of the Screen Actors Guild? 0. Every one of us then worked for free, and every one of us today worked for free in the Screen Actors Guild board. Nobody gets paid. But anyway, I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, and I'm the vice president. And we're hearing all these terrible things from the contract players at Warner's in television. One instance, here's a girl, a young actress who was 7 months pregnant, and they worked this woman for 20 straight hours. Overtime, meal penalties, everything, you know, and she's 7 months pregnant. You can't do that to people, you know. And I hear all these things, and so I call all the Warner contract players to my house for a private meeting. And they tell us all these infringements upon our contract with Warner Brothers. And we've got the evidence now, and so Reagan's away, and I get on the phone to Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner, I'm vice president of Screen Actors Guild, Jimmy Lydon knew me as an actor, and he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Mr. Warner, we have all these things happening to your contract players at Warner's, and I want to send my lawyers over to look at your books Monday morning." This is Friday. He said, "Very well." And we sent the lawyers over, and we found hundreds of thousands of dollars against him, and we fined him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I figured he's the biggest no-good so-and-so in the whole world. And many years later, I'm a producer at Warner Brothers, and I meet Jack Warner. He was Mr. Warner for me always. And Bill Conrad and I are the only 2 producers on the lot. Everybody else is gone. And I find this man to be a thorough motion picture maker. Every time we make a feature, there's always, you know, a director involved, and there's always 1 or 2 places in the film where something went wrong and they had to do such and such, and we got the film and we got to cover that little mistake there, you know, so nobody will notice. It happens once or twice in every film, even the ones I direct. But anyway, it's a happening. And we have to show a rough cut, a final cut to Mr. Warner before we put the music and dubbing and things in the picture for his right. And in those 2 pictures, Mr. Warner would sit in his projection room with Bill and myself, and we'd run the film. And the lights would go on afterwards, and the first one, let's say it's reel 3. And he'd say, "Bill, you know, in that reel 3 there, when the guy gets out of the cab, what happened there?" And Bill would say, well, Colonel, so-and-so and so-and-so, and the director did so-and-so, and we had to cover it up, and so we did this. He said, "Yeah, okay." Well, he said, "Yeah, okay." Now, a kid, everybody under 60 was a kid then. I was about 40 some odd. He said, "Kid, you know, in the living room there, when the guy gets up," and I said, "Yeah, well," he was so wise that he could pick out those 2 little spots, just like that. And I learned to respect him very, very much. All he was doing previously was he had told his chiefs of manufacture, of casting, of music, everything, "Do it the cheapest way you can now, make it, you know." And when he got caught, he paid. And he never did that again, you know. I thought he was a terrible man up until the time I worked for him.
One of the really nice stories that I read about in Hollywood, you know, we hear so much lurid stuff about Hollywood or unhappiness, but one of the nice stories I heard was the relationship that you had for many, many years with the actor Robert Armstrong. And everyone knows Bob Armstrong, Carl Denham in the original King Kong, and many, many movies. But tell the audience about your relationship with Bob Armstrong.
I made 2 films, both at Repulsive, Republic, we call it Repulsive. because it wasn't fair of us, but we did, because they had short schedules. You know, what we used to make in 21 days, you made in 12 days at Republic. But they tried to make good films. Anyway, I made 2 films with Bob Armstrong. And I had great admiration for Armstrong. He and Jimmy Gleason were great buddies. They'd done a bunch of plays together here and in England, and they were really fine character actors, you know. And they made a lot of money in the early days, you know. Bob Armstrong was under contract to Pathé in the silent days, and he used to make $4,000 a week. $4,000 a week, when that was real money, you know. It was real money then. Yeah. You know, when the average worker was making $18 a week, 4,000. Anyway, Bob and I became great friends. Now he was then in his late 50s, early 50s, and I was in my 20s. And we became great buddies. He made me a member of the Masters Club in Hollywood and that sort of thing. And I loved him as a man. And he never had any children. And so he kind of semi-adopted my wife and me. And it's lasted for many years. And finally, one time, we went to New York in one of the most difficult jobs I've ever had in my entire life. I made, with 5 other people, one of them Bob Armstrong, I made the very first daytime television show, live television. And we 6 people, leading man and his new wife, her mother and father, his mother and father, 6 people. We memorized 26 pages of dialogue every day, Monday through Friday.
Can you imagine that?
52 weeks a year. We made 390 some odd television shows in a year and a half before they canceled the show, and we said, thank God. Oh, thank God. Really, it was, can you imagine going on a television show live every day in a new 26 pages of dialogue?
Yeah.
From memory? Yeah. And you can't make a mistake like you do in motion pictures, you know. Can't make a mistake.
So you and Bob, though, from your relationship, he kind of adopted you as a son, and then what happened as he got older?
Well, back in Hollywood, Bob was getting older and older, and he finally died when he was 84 years old. And his wife was only a couple years younger than him, and she was not dead, and he left me his wife in his will. No kidding. I became her legal guardian. And I said to him, Louise, you don't need a legal guardian. She said, I know that, and you know that, but that's the way it is. And I said, okay, and that's the way it was. And she lived for 20 more years until she was 92 years old, and she finally died, and I had to clean up the estate and everything else, you know. And
so Hollywood gave you a father, and it gave you a second wife.
Yeah, He really was my father, and my father was, oh my God, my father was holy terror.
Yeah.
My mother never would leave him or anything else, you know, very Catholic, and she loved him. And I don't know of any of my brothers and sisters that hated him. I know I never hated my father, but oh my God, what a tragedy. Well, but I wouldn't have been in the motion picture business without it, I'll tell you that.
Well, Jimmy, I think we're all just awed by, we could go on and on doing this, but time is short, and I think that your career, there's more than just luck. Yes, you were a lucky guy, but you're a hell of a talented guy. And I thank you so much for coming today. Ladies and gentlemen, put it together for Jimmy Lydon. Thank you, Jimmy.